Welcome to the Life Leadership Podcast with myself, Leila Singh, all things coaching, career and personal branding. This podcast is for ambitious career professionals like you, wanting to create a life of choice and freedom, to be, do and have more through overcoming limitations, to develop new perspectives and insights, and to redefine your success, be that in work, health, relationships, and so much more. Today, the topic is this one thing that I want to share with you that is critical to your success. Because we, as I said, we do get to create our own reality through our own lens of the world. The thing is here, we often look for, and I have clients who approach me with this, it's, okay, can you give me some strategies, some tactics, some best practices that I can go away and implement so that I can, whether it's to get a promotion, to get paid more, to start a new career, to, pivot to something different, whatever it might be, or to simply elevate up the career ladder, maybe to go from a manager to a director and so forth. But they want strategies, they want like tactics and best practices, and that's all really good, and that's a good thing to have in our arsenal. It's great, and that's what I do help people with. However, the one thing that people often overlook or they don't realize is so important is that actually our self-awareness is the biggest thing that can propel us forward. Why? Because oftentimes we spend time looking at all the external things that we can do and the tangible things, almost the actions we can go and take, and we don't stop and tune into ourselves and actually realize that we have so much potential within and so much almost control within that can enable us to propel ourselves forward and to influence the situations that we find ourselves in and to influence the outcomes that we're looking for. So the reason I say that is because what happens is if we are not having that level of self-awareness, if we're kind of going through life almost unconsciously of how we are showing up, of how we are behaving, of what's going on internally, then we get what we create, which is the way that we look at life, the way that we look at things around us. And ultimately we get to choose how we look at situations and our experiences. And by doing so, by choosing how we do that, we create our experiences, we create our results, we create our outcomes. So what is it that you can do differently, or what is it that you can tune into to build that self-awareness? That's what I want to share with you today. So what I mean by all of this, what I'm sharing today, is about tuning into yourself and becoming more self-aware. Self-aware in terms of your thoughts, your actions, how you are influencing and impacting the things around you before you start to look at the external things that you may feel are influencing and impacting what's going on in your life. Does that make sense? So we start with looking at your thoughts and the kind of thoughts that we have. What comes up for you? What shows up in your mind day to day? And I liken this to, the bubble machine that kids have at a party that pops out these little bubbles and they go floating along and then they go pop. And if you imagine that those bubbles are your thoughts, and actually some of them, as I said, they go pop straight away. Some of them last a bit longer, then they disappear and pop. Some of them go up into the sky. And eventually at some point they will all pop. But here's the thing, it's the same with our thoughts. We get to choose how long we hang on to those thoughts. Do we hold on to them forever, or do we have the thought and actually think, well, that's not really serving me, it's not helping me to feel good, so you know what, I'm going to let that go, I'm going to move on? Because the thoughts will always come up, good and bad, positive and negative. It's what we do with them that matters. And here's the thing I want you to tune into for yourself, is the meaning that you put onto those thoughts. So you'll have a thought pop up, but what meaning then do you put onto that thought that comes along? And is it a meaning that is positive or negative? So for example, if somebody shows up late to a meeting with you, what's the first meaning that you put onto that? So first, the thought you're going to have is they're late, right? Then what meaning are you going to put to that? Oftentimes it's an assumption. So you might assume that they haven't placed enough importance on this meeting. They haven't prioritized it, couldn't be bothered. You know, their timekeeping's bad, they're lazy, da, da, da. So there's all these things that we'll start to create meaning out of. And actually, if you think about the ones I've just shared, most of them are negative because the person's been late to that meeting. You're going to start looking at it in a negative way, when actually, as we've heard often enough, we don't know what's going on for somebody else, and they could have had a genuine emergency and so have turned up 5 minutes late to this meeting. You know, it could have been they've just had some really bad news. They found out that one of their loved ones is in hospital, or there's a bit of a crisis that they've had to deal with. So before we make assumptions, before we put meaning onto it, let's just find out the truth. Let's keep an open mind until we understand the situation. And it's the same with anything that happens. We always put meaning onto the situation, and those meanings that we put onto situations come from our beliefs, our past experiences, maybe things that we've experienced when we were growing up, maybe a situation we've seen before that looks similar, and therefore we assume that this is now a similar situation. So think about what meaning you put onto the thoughts that you have, and I'll give you some more examples in a minute. Once you start to tune into yourself, you can get to change the meaning that you put on something. So I'm going to use road rage as an example to give you some context here. And I'm not talking about road rage in the extreme where you get out and start banging on someone's window. I'm just talking about when someone maybe cuts you up on the road, or is doing something silly, and we get a bit worked up and agitated, and then we might start shouting and swearing at them even though they can't hear us, or whatever we might do. By the way, I used to be guilty of this, so that's why I'm using the example. And what tends to happen is that we start to create a meaning to what's just happened. So if someone cuts us up or does something really silly on the road, and you think, what an idiot, they're not paying attention, they think they own the road, or they're really selfish, or they're not thinking about other drivers, or it's all meaning that we put onto it. And now we don't know the truth, we probably never know the truth, but those meanings don't really serve us because they're all very, very negative. And it's not about accepting someone's behavior when it's inappropriate. What it is about is managing your own state, managing the way that you operate, the way that you show up, and the way that you are for yourself and for others. So managing your state is about managing your energy, your emotions. And if we focus on the negative meanings in a situation, it creates negative emotions. Okay, so what could you do differently in that situation? Is what I then learned to do myself was actually not get worked up about it, accept that there are people on the road who, you know, maybe shouldn't be there, or need some more lessons. And actually, perhaps that person genuinely has to get somewhere. They've just had really bad news. They have to get to a hospital. You know, it could be anything. We don't know. But actually, by just creating a story for ourselves, a meaning that serves us better, we manage ourselves better. In other words, think about anger, something that gets you really angry. When you get into that state of anger, does it actually serve you? How does it make you feel? What comes up for you? And think about then, how do you then respond to other things that are going on around you when you're in that state of being angry? So you see, that's the emotion that I'm referring to. Now, just to recap on this, the thoughts are the first things that come up, right? We have the thoughts, the bubbles, remember, and we let go of some and we hold on to others. Start to check in with yourself. What am I holding on to? And how is that helping me by holding on to that? So if somebody's upset me, does it make sense to carry that with me for the rest of the week, or to think, okay, well, perhaps there was something going on for them at the time, that's why they spoke to me in that way, and actually don't take it personally. Because oftentimes when someone says something that isn't very nice, it's not usually about you, it's actually about themselves. It's a reflection of them. So be mindful of the thoughts that are showing up for you, and be aware, start to tune into the meaning that you give to those situations and the assumptions that we make all of the time. Because those meanings, those assumptions create the feeling within us, the emotions, the energy. And check in to see, okay, is this good or is this bad? Is this helping me or not? Is this putting me in a really bad place today, or is it making me feel good? Why? Because those emotions that we have coming up for us directly influence the way that we then behave, our actions that we decide to take, and how we take those actions. Why is that important? Because then that has a direct influence on our outcomes, our results. And ultimately, if you want to be showing up as your best self and getting the best results in everything that you do, not just in your job, in your career, in your life, if you want everything to be showing up well, to be turning out well, you want to be coming from a place of taking positive actions, having behaviors that serve you and not hold you back. And they come from the emotions, the feelings that you've got going on at any point in time. And those emotions come from the meanings that we give to the thoughts. So if you have a piece of paper, just make a note of those 5 things in order. So you've got thoughts, meaning, emotions, actions, results. And if you look at them in that order and start to check back in with yourself on a daily basis or at the end of a week, just reflect. So at the end of the day, particularly if it's a day that didn't go well for you, stop and ask yourself, okay, what was it that had me feeling that way? So the emotion that came up, because it will have been the thoughts that you had about what happened. It's not about what happened. It's about how you put your perception onto it, your interpretation of what happened. That's what creates the emotion, not the actual situation itself. It's the way that we choose to interpret it. So when I talk about our lens of the world, it's a lens that you choose to put on to your world, which, as I say, comes from experiences, it comes from beliefs, but it doesn't mean it's right or wrong. So letting go of all of that and being objective about it and thinking, okay, this happened today at work. Another example is if somebody, a colleague maybe says something to you to put you down. It's a derogatory comment, maybe about your work or a project that you've just completed, something you've handed in, something that didn't go well. And they make a derogatory comment that has you feeling that you're not good enough or that you failed. Okay, so what do you do with that? Because that makes you feel bad. It makes you feel maybe like you're a failure, you're not good enough, that people don't think I'm good at what I do. And you go into this whole internal self-dialogue that puts you down and drags you down further and further and further. So my question there is, ask yourself, is my interpretation of what that person said serving me? Is it helping me in any way? Is it coming from someone whose opinion I trust and who has my best interests at heart? Yes or no? Always an important question. And then if it's not coming from someone whose opinion you value and trust, and coming from a place where you know it's good intention, then why are you even placing value on what they've said to you? Because, as I said, oftentimes when people do that, if they're not coming from a good place intentionally, if they're not someone that you can trust, if it's not someone whose opinion you can value, then why would you allow it to impact you? Why would you allow it to now hold you back to experience those emotions that are bringing you down? Because often when people do that, and they do it perhaps sometimes without realizing, sometimes intentionally to put you down, but a lot of that will come from their own insecurity. So it's not personal to you. It's something that they need to project onto whoever happens to be there at the time. Unfortunately, it was you. They said something to you. It made them feel better. It made you feel crap. But actually, you can do something about the you feeling crap part. Okay. And that's the meaning you've given to that situation. So by thinking, okay, was that constructive feedback? Yes or no? And if the answer is no, if it's not somebody that you trust, somebody who you value their opinion, then actually, okay, shrug your shoulders and move on. Doesn't matter. That's their opinion. Why are you letting it impact you? This is easy to hear and not so easy to implement. And this is where honing that self-awareness is it becomes habitual, because no one's perfect, and we will always catch ourselves going into that negative energy, the negative emotion, and start feeling bad about ourselves because of something that's happened. But then by honing your self-awareness of what you were doing and how you were creating that feeling in that situation, you get to reel it back in and reframe the meanings that you're putting onto things. So if someone says something to you to put you down, how can you reframe that? Okay, well, in your mind, you don't have to say it out loud, but actually, well, that's their opinion. They don't really know what's going on for me. They don't know the truth. I don't value their opinion. Doesn't matter. They don't have any meaning in my life. Actually, I know their intention isn't a positive one, because we're both vying for the next promotion and only one of us is going to get it. So by them putting me down, it makes me maybe lose my confidence, and then they will look better to the hiring manager. It's all of those kinds of things. So be aware of the meaning that you're putting onto things, and check in that you're not just placing assumptions onto situations. So that's just another example. Why is all of this important? Because oftentimes when we don't realize that we have got the strength to actually access our own awareness, which can create more almost control or influence for us, we then, or even impact, whether, again, this is work, this is personal life. But until we realize that, oftentimes we'll place the blame for everything going on outside of us, external to us, and feel that we have no control, or we're out of our depth, and these things are happening to me and there's nothing I can do. And that's where starting to build that self-awareness, and I invite you to do this by taking time to reflect at the end of each day, just a couple of minutes, and by all means write it down. That's much more powerful. If you actually make some notes, write down how the day went, and if something happened during that day that wasn't good, talk about it, write it down, and think, okay, well, I was in this meeting and this happened, or somebody said something to me and it made me feel really bad, or impacted my confidence or my self-esteem, or my belief in my abilities because somebody questioned them. Okay, so how did I react to that? What was the meaning I gave to that situation? Did I now feel that, oh, I'm really no good at this job, and everyone must think that I'm rubbish at it, and maybe I'm in the wrong job, and I don't deserve to be here, and I have imposter syndrome, and it goes on and on and on. So by stopping and taking time to reflect on that inner dialogue that you have going on, the thoughts that you have and the meanings you're creating from them, you can choose to change them. So in that scenario, in a meeting where someone says something to you, what is the learning from it? Again, is it somebody whose opinion you value and somebody you trust? Are they coming from a good place, or are they looking to simply embarrass you, humiliate you, and actually then that's their issue, not yours? Okay, the output of that for the people in the room may not have been great, because now you're feeling like they are looking at you like you don't know what you're doing. And that is something, by how you choose to respond and how you show up, will get them past that. They'll forget about it. But if you hold on to it and allow it to impact your confidence and the way that you show up and the way that you carry yourself and the way that you communicate, then they may start to believe it's true, because you're now feeling, if you're not feeling not good enough, you're feeling like, oh, maybe everyone's questioning my ability to do my job. You'll start to project that outwards when you continue to have conversations with people. So this is why it's really important to get clear with yourself on how you're responding to situations, what meaning you're putting onto them, how you're then behaving as a consequence of the actions that you're taking, and how they will directly influence the outcomes, the experiences, the results that you have. And I'll give you another example here of this. So these 5 words that I've shared with you, so thoughts, meaning, emotions or feelings, actions or behaviors, and results or outcomes. If I apply that in the context of public speaking, a quick story I want to share with you that will probably help to give more context to what I'm explaining here, is that so this was a few years ago. I was invited to speak in an event, and even then I had spoken at a lot of events, so it wasn't a huge issue for me. I didn't get a little bit of butterflies, but not overly nervous. And I live in London, so this event was on the other side of London. It was on a Saturday morning. I had to leave very early to get there because they wanted me there at the start of the event, even though I wasn't speaking until the afternoon, which is okay. So I had been working. I was still in my job at this point, which was quite demanding. So I was exhausted by Saturday morning, Friday night. And I got up to get ready and travel across London to the venue. And it was pouring with rain. I got wet. My hair got frizzy. I felt like I was like a drowned rat. And I showed up there and I was waiting. I was watching, listening to the other speakers. And then towards the end of the day, I was then speaking. And as it became closer to the time that I was due to go up and speak, I started to feel really stressed and anxious and worried. And I just was all over the place. And because I'm so used to checking in on have that self-awareness going on, I was sitting there and I was thinking, okay, hold on a minute. Because if I let this carry on and then I go up to speak, I'm not going to do a good job. So you remember I talked about the actions and then the results. So because I wasn't in a good state, I wasn't in a good place, I didn't feel calm and confident, it meant that my delivery of my information, what I was sharing, perhaps wouldn't land as well as it could. It wouldn't have the same impact, which means the outcome or the results of my session wouldn't be as I would have wanted it. It wouldn't have been at its best. So as I sat there, I tuned in with myself and I thought, okay, where are these feelings, the emotions coming from? And they were coming from the thoughts that I was having and the meaning I was giving to the thoughts. So what were the thoughts? The thoughts were, and I'm sure you can relate if you've ever had to stand up and speak in front of an audience. My thoughts were, I'm ill prepared and I'm going to forget what to say. I'm exhausted because I've had a heavy week and I'm going to struggle to get my words out and articulate them. My hair's frizzy because I got wet in the rain and I look like crap and therefore everyone's going to be looking at my hair and judging me. And because overall that, I'm not prepared, I'm feeling like I don't look great, I'm tired, that this is not going to be good. I'm going to embarrass myself and people are going to think I'm a bad speaker and so forth. And the dialogue continues and continues. So I'm putting all this meaning onto it and making assumptions of other people's judgment of me before I've even gotten up on stage. Okay. And we all do this, by the way, we all do it. But the point here is to start to recognize what we're doing so that we can stop doing it because it doesn't help us. So again, because I follow this process, I realized what was causing me to feel that way, which are the thoughts and the meaning I was giving to it. So I simply thought, right, how can I refocus my thoughts? How can I look at this situation differently that will serve me in a better way so that when I show up on stage, I will deliver at my absolute best? So I asked myself the question, what brought me here? And what brought me here was the fact that I was invited to speak at the event and I chose to accept. Why? Because I wanted to share a message and inspire the people in the room. And as soon as I focused back on that and the fact that I wanted to give them my absolute best, to serve those people at the highest level and inspire them, my whole energy shifted. The anxiety, the stress, the worry that was going on inside dissipated straight away, because now I'd refocused my attention on the positive being why I had chosen to be there, what I was there to do, and the outcome that I'm looking for. And this is, if you're someone who does have to speak in front of an audience from time to time, and you do get nervous, anxious, and worried, this is a great technique to adopt, which is to take the focus off of you, because that is often the reason that people don't like public speaking, because they're worried about how they look, how they sound, what people are thinking about them. They'll remember their words, what they've got to say, and so forth. It's all about them. If you take the focus off of them if you take the focus off of you onto your audience and why you're there to speak and what it is you want to get from it, that your whole energy will shift. And you'll be there doing the best you can for the people in the room. And you'll let go of the worry about you. So this is what I mean by this process of developing your self-awareness. Is an ongoing process. It's still something I do and check in with myself when I feel I'm not in a good place. It's the first thing I do. What's caused me to be in that place that has me feeling not great? And what thoughts am I having? What meanings am I creating that's having me feel like that? And as soon as I can work through that in my mind, I can let go of those feelings that are stopping me, that are holding me back, that are making me not feel good. What it means is you take back your own power. You get to access that and create the experiences that you want to, rather than being almost dictated to by just accepting what is going on outside of you and around you. So just to recap on the process here for developing your self-awareness is, number one is to stop and reflect on the experiences, the situations you experience day to day, and then to check in with the thoughts that you're having and the meaning you're giving to those thoughts. What meaning are you putting onto things, and are they serving you or are they holding you back? What emotions are coming up for you, and how are those emotions directly influencing the actions that you choose to take, the way that you take them, and what's the impact on your results? And if you look at all of that and realize that's not helping you, it's not moving you forward, it's not serving you, then what can you do differently? Is to reframe or to look at how you can shift the meaning that you're giving to a situation, because remember, that choice is up to you. So as I said, if you have any questions, if you want to reach out and discuss this further, please connect with me on LinkedIn. Just direct message me. Let me know what comments, questions you have, and I will come back to you. I hope this has been useful for you. Until next time, remember to build your influence, to make an impact, and be remembered for the right reasons by showing up as the best version of you. Take care. Have a good rest of the week, and I will see you next time. Thank you for listening. Please subscribe to this podcast if you haven't already done so. And if you enjoyed and gained value from today's episode, then do please leave a review telling us your key learnings and what you enjoyed the most. And do please share this podcast with your friends and colleagues so we can spread the word on life leadership, creating a life of choice, freedom, and new possibilities. Connect with me directly on LinkedIn, and if you would like to learn more about how we can work together, either DM me on LinkedIn or email me. All details and resources can be found in the show notes.